give me my baby back.
Tacoma police and FBI agents hope this flyer will help in their search for 2-year-old Teekah Lewis. The Tacoma girl has been missing for 38 hours now. The ground search that took place all day yesterday is now over.
Over 300 people in that bowling alley that night, and not one out of 300 people didn't see nothing. It's hard to believe.
Today, close to 24 detectives will be canvassing a 1-mile radius near this bowling alley, handing out the flyer. They will also be checking with some residents in the area.
I've missed 14 birthdays, and it's time to bring her home. Give me a Christmas miracle.
Teekah Lewis was just 2 years old at the time she disappeared. I can't think of any person that is more defenseless than a little child. Teekah was last seen at Frontier Lanes Bowling Alley in Tacoma, Washington. Now, you may wonder, why was a 2-year-old little girl at a bowling alley? She was there with her family. She was there with her mom, aunts, uncles, friends. They were all there bowling in lanes 7 and 8. It was league night at Frontier Lanes Bowling Alley, so there were tons of people there. The mother says, and this is not disputed, the mother says she was watching Teekah, who was playing around some video games, and near a side exit door, I might add. She looked back and saw Teekah. She says, then Mommy turns to look at an uncle bowling, turns to watch him bowl, turns back, and Teekah is gone.
If you find anything at all that you think is of interest, don't pick it up.
4 volunteers stand shoulder to shoulder.
The other 2 teams are ready.
Searching for clues into the disappearance of 2-year-old Teekah Lewis.
It's just the desire to help people out. Just want to come out and do what we can to help find the little girl.
She had a Tweety Bird white and green t-shirt on. She had white pants.
Teekah Lewis was last seen here at a nearby bowling alley. Officers wanted to make absolutely sure that she didn't wander off by herself.
This is every parent's worst nightmare, because I have not talked to a single parent that hasn't been at the grocery store or at the mall or in Target or in Walmart, somewhere, and you look at your child, you turn to put something in the grocery cart, or you turn away and you look back, the child's gone. It's happened to me. And the panic that you feel in that moment, and you immediately think, how far could they have gotten in 15, 20 seconds? And the panic that takes over your body until you find that child. Well, Teekah's mom, Teresa, never found the child.
Sure, there's without a doubt that she didn't just wander away from the building, that she didn't wander away and then lay down in the brush and make sure she's not here.
Tacoma police even bring in Tunk, one of the best search dogs in the area.
He's just being really thorough and checking the ground and actually working quite fast today, so that's good because we got a lot of area to cover.
Everyone went running toward the door. They burst out that side exit door at the bowling alley and flooded into the parking lot. No Teekah. They searched around the parking lot and all through the bowling alley and the bathrooms, you name it. No Teekah. She's just 2. She couldn't have gotten very far. Police were called in about 15 minutes when they realized they could not find her in the bowling alley. They could not find her in the parking lot. She hadn't gotten into one of the cars in the parking lot. They called police immediately. Police came out full force with bloodhound dogs, you name it. They blocked off the area. They searched that parking lot and the streets surrounding Frontier Bowling Alley into the night, looking for 2-year-old Teekah.
Searchers come up empty-handed. Only a few possible clues are found, such as a pair of rubber gloves. But the search leaves authorities with only one possible conclusion, that Teekah Lewis is the victim of foul play. Something her mother is not ready to accept. She spent this day handing out pictures of her little girl.
I believe my daughter's still alive, and I'll never give up hope.
The family heartbroken, police working around the clock when 48 hours later, 2 days later, an unrelated woman calls police and says she is connected the dots. 2 + 2 in her mind equals 4. She says that evening, the night that little Teekah, 2 years old, goes missing from this bowling alley in Tacoma, that she was pulling into the bowling alley. And when she did, she saw a dark-colored Pontiac Grand Am scratch off, just take off at an unexplainable high rate of speed out of a parking lot, guns the motor, and takes off out of the bowling alley. She calls police. They immediately try desperately to find out who was driving that car. Was there a connection? Here's the problem. The bowling alley, Frontier Bowling Alley in Tacoma, had no surveillance video at all. No security video, nothing. Not inside and not in the parking lot. So there's no way to capture a license tag, an identification, even the certain make and model of the car. Nothing. Police tried desperately again since it was league night there in the bowling alley, which means there were dozens and dozens of people there, probably men, bowling against each other, tried to get home video that they may have taken of each other at the league night. No good.
Until the day I get her back, I'll never give up hope.
Teresa Lewis has returned to the place that changed her life forever. It's the last place the mother of 5 saw her 2-year-old daughter, Teekah, on January 23, 1999. During a family outing to the now defunct New Frontier Bowling Alley, Teekah vanished without a trace.
It's been a roller coaster. Non-stop crying.
While family and friends bowled, the 3-foot girl played at the wheel of a video arcade game. When Teresa's brother got up to bowl, Mom says she looked away from her baby girl for less than a minute, and when she looked back, she was gone.
Chills just went down my spine. Just really blew my mind.
Lewis searched all of the usual places, the bathrooms, up, under, over, and behind any standing item until finally alerting the security guard of the alley.
She had a Tweety Bird, white and green t-shirt on. She had white pants.
Police and the FBI immediately began searching for any sign of the tot, using bloodhounds, ATVs, helicopters, questioning sex offenders, and searching all areas around the bowling alley, including a building at a landfill nearby.
Now, many people have asked, was the family cooperative? Number one, the father was not there that night. He was out of town. He is not part of this scenario. He's accounted for. He has an airtight alibi. He is not an issue. That leads to the mother. She was with the baby. She was with 2-year-old Teekah at the bowling alley. Well, the mother immediately volunteers to take polygraphs. She took not 1 but 2 polygraphs.
The majority of the bowlers at the alley that night have been interviewed, but police have yet to identify the driver of a late 1980s or early 1990s Grand Am with tinted windows. Witnesses say the car was seen speeding out of the parking lot just moments after Teekah disappeared.
It's a matter of narrowing the timeline down and also, again, to rule them out so we can focus and put our energy elsewhere.
The bowling alley is now a fast food restaurant, but until the toddler described as a mama's girl comes home, Lewis will continue to revisit where she lost her daughter.
That's what I've been asking for years, pleading for years, is someone just to come forward.
And Police have told us that she took this second polygraph, not because she failed the first one, but to tie up loose ends, to answer more questions than they had at the first poly. Apparently, she passed both those polygraphs. Other family, other relatives have offered to take polygraphs so they can clear themselves, so police can get past them and look for whoever took 2-year-old Teekah. Sadly, the night 2-year-old Teekah was taken, no Amber Alert was issued. Amber Alert in that area was not yet in place.
Now you have to step down about 2 or 3 steps to go to the bowling area, and above that there is a counter that's above there where people can watch the people who are bowling. And then to the back of there is this arcade, which is kind of in a little nook area behind there. There's also a bar and a restaurant that's in there. But where the arcade was is just about 6 feet from an exit door of where Teekah was playing. And then we believe that her mother was down in the bowling area, but she could have also been up at the counter area. But she said that she was able to see Teekah when she was looking over at her.
Immediately, when the bowling alley found out Teekah was gone, they did an announcement overhead for everybody to stop what you're doing and look for this child. Just like when you're in a grocery store or a store and you hear the overhead, so-and-so is looking for 2-year-old Derek. He looks like this. Everybody stop and look. They did that immediately. They lost no time. No Teekah.
I went out the side door. I was screaming for Teekah because I knew if I was screaming for her and she heard my voice, she'd run back if she walked out on her own. But I know she didn't walk out on her own. She couldn't even open up that door. The door was too heavy for my little girl to open up that door. It was dark. You know, if the person that did this knew what they were doing, they could have got away. But Teekah was to want to scream at any stranger. She was a mama's girl. She would only come to mama, her sisters, and her babysitter, and her cousin Sarah. She wouldn't go to nobody else. So I don't understand how this person got away with my daughter.
I'm singing for you.
That's what I've been asking for years, pleading for years, is someone just to come forward.
2-year-old toddler Teekah Lewis played at a coin-operated video game while her family bowled nearby. Teekah vanished minutes later, January 23, 1999. Investigators say they believe the toddler was kidnapped by a stranger, but say it's hard to believe nobody saw what happened.
What the police can do is go back to that bar. I believe this person was a local, because that's where a lot of, bowling alleys are local people. They're not people on the road or from far away. And I also believe it's somebody who was probably one of the bar people, coming and going quite often. Probably people know who he is, but don't suspect he's, particularly guilty of anything, because that's Roger or that's Bobby. They know who he is, even if they don't like him too much, but he's always around. And it isn't that hard to grab a child out of a very, very busy place, because all you have to do is have that moment. If he sees that little girl and he's over in that corner and he can get her out of eye shot for a second, put her hand over her mouth, and he's out the door. And if somebody actually saw him even with his hand on the child, he'd probably say, oh, your little girl was running toward the door here. I was trying to keep her from going outside, and we would never think anything of it. So I bet you he's a regular at that bowling alley. They need to go back and find out who drinks at that bar back then.
Police are working under 4 different scenarios. I'll go from least likely to statistically most likely. Number one theory is that there may be a party having a dispute with a family member that, as a get-back, took Teekah. Well, not likely. That usually only happens in the movies, or maybe with the Colombian cartel. Also, time has passed. If this were a revenge factor, then what were they bargaining for? Was there money owed? Was there some disagreement that needed to be settled? That was never made known. So that seems extremely unlikely. Also, the family has cooperated with police, so any known enemy, that's so cliche, would have been reported to police and would have been investigated. That's dead end. Number 2, did 2-year-old Teekah wander off in January in Tacoma, Washington? Did a 2-year-old leave the video area, the play area, go out a side exit into the freezing cold? Possible. 2-year-olds are extremely agile. My children at 2 years old could absolutely turn a lock and get out the door. Why? I put latches way up, only I could open, because them not knowing could get out the door and down the driveway before I could stop them.
One of them could easily have gone outside, got in the car. The other guy could have put himself between the child and the family, scooped her up, and immediately taken her outside, gotten into the car, and disappeared.
Crowded bowling alley, Frontier Bowling Lanes, Tacoma, Washington, January, on a weekend night. It's league night. The place is packed. A 2-year-old girl playing. Mommy's watching her at a distance, letting her run around. Mommy turns to the uncle to see him bowl, turns back, the baby's gone.
I would say maybe 10 seconds I turned away, and I turned back around, and she wasn't there. I immediately stopped everything.
Did she get out a side door? She could have. Here's the problem with that. Mom says she noticed in about 15 to 20 seconds Teekah wasn't there, as long as it took her to watch the relative bowl and turn back. If she did, let's follow that scenario to its logical end. If she did go out that side door where she was playing, had to be like a fire exit or an emergency exit that's not hooked up and doesn't make a sound like most of them, how far could she have gotten in 20 seconds in January in Tacoma, Washington, in the cold, in a packed parking lot, walking between cars? How far could she really get? As an adult, how far can you get at night in a packed parking lot, walking through the cars in a parking lot? Not far. Police were there in 15 minutes. How far could she get? So, toddler wandering off? Not likely. That leads me to family. Why? Yes, I know the family's taken polygraphs, and yes, I know that they've cooperated, and yes, I know the father is out of the picture. He's got an alibi out of town that night. That's a possibility. Only because statistically, family is usually involved when a child goes missing. But in this scenario, there were dozens of witnesses that Teekah, the 2-year-old little girl, was in that bowling alley that night. Witnesses that the child was playing in this area. Witnesses that the mom was by the lanes watching the bowling. I do not believe that every relative in that family, that every friend, that every casual observer lied to protect a family member. I don't think that.
In my heart, she's still alive. I'll never give up on Teekah. You know, she was 2 years old, and she was a mama's girl, and I don't understand how they got away with her. But deep inside in my heart, she's still alive.
Ms. Lewis, do you know who has her?
I believe so.
Have you told authorities?
I've told them over the 12 years.
Have they investigated in that area?
They have. I mean, it's been 12 years. They took 12 years of my life. They took 12 years of my daughter's life. I have an empty spot in my heart. You know, I can't get that back until I get Teekah.
That leads me to a crime of opportunity. That scenario seems the most likely, the most logical. Let's just face it, most sex offenders are men. This bowling alley was crowded for league night.
things she would do when she woke up in the morning was say, "Mommy, I want cereal," and she would go turn on Pooh Bear, and then she would say, "Now it's time for me to go wake up my baby sister."
The last time her family saw her, she was in the video game department of the bowling alley. It was a very, very busy Saturday night, the busiest day of the week here at this bowling alley in South Tacoma. Her mother says she actually turned her head for just a moment and her daughter was gone. Today, FBI agents and Tacoma police will be out in this area near the bowling alley of South Tacoma distributing these new flyers. They will be put up on area businesses, area residents' doors, asking for any clues to the disappearance of 2-year-old Teekah Lewis.
I couldn't leave the house without her. I had to take her wherever I went. And if that was going to the grocery store, I had to take her because she would cry. She was a mama's girl.
Now, you would think that the league members would notice if one of the members went missing, but what if it was a player that didn't play very much? What if it was just someone that sat on the sidelines and watched? What if it was a league member that never made it, that got to the bowling alley but never made it to the bowling lane? And they thought, oh, he just stayed home.
I remember going there, just seeing tons of people. And I thought it was just a friendly environment because I had took my twins a week before and it was fine.
What if it was just a man that was there watching, that wasn't attached to any of the players? It was so packed there. Who's to know the difference? Who knew who was on what team or who was not on any team? That is the most likely scenario, a crime of opportunity.
And I went up to bowl, and I seen Teekah. She was right there. She was at the video game trying to play the machine, but she was too short, so she couldn't reach the pedal, so she couldn't play, but she acted like she was playing it. And I turned, not even a minute, and I would say maybe 10 seconds I turned away, and I turned back around and she wasn't there. I immediately stopped everything, and I asked my brothers, and I said, "Where's Teekah?" And they said she should be at the video games, and I said, "No, she's gone." And we searched for her. We searched in the video games, in between them, in the bathroom, in the nightclub.
Teekah goes missing, the 2-year-old little girl at the Frontier Lanes bowling alley in Tacoma. Time passes. The trail seems cold. Detectives come back on the case, new detectives, to just take a fresh look at the case, and this is what they learn. 3 other similar incidents at the same location. Number 1, same bowling alley. A little boy in the bathroom says he was molested by a white male with brown hair. 3 days after Teekah goes missing, a 6-year-old little boy in the bowling alley, in the same video arcade area where Teekah goes missing, gets approached by a white male with brown hair. The mom intervenes. Security comes over, takes the man outside. They didn't call police. A third incident less than 1 mile away from the very same bowling alley. A father is at a park with his little girl, and he spies a white male with brown hair beside the bathrooms trying to lure children over to come to him. The father goes after him. The man runs. The man runs to a blue 1995 Pontiac car.
that some said was fleeing out of the parking lot that night.
It was a maroon in color Grand Am, either a late model 1980s or early 1990s model. Now, I do have to say, Jean, that police did extensively research this vehicle. They didn't find any connections to Teekah's case. However, I did ask Teekah's mother when I spoke to her earlier if she knew anybody who had this type of vehicle, and she also said no.
Okay, thinking about people maybe behind the bar that worked there, going in and out, and then we find out this video surveillance system wasn't working that night in the bowling alley, Pat.
The person that did this knew what they were doing. They could have got away. But Teekah was the one to scream at any stranger. She was a mama's girl. She would only come to mama, her sisters, and her babysitter, and her cousin Sarah. She wouldn't go to nobody else. So I don't understand how this person got away with my daughter.
I'm really confused about how Teekah's mother says she knows where this child is, but she wants somebody else to give information to the police saying where the child is to bring her home. If she already knows that, we don't need anybody else's help. The only thing I can think of is maybe she just wishes the child were alive down there, and the reason she doesn't want to go down there is because she really doesn't believe the child is alive down there, and that's just one way to keep hope going. But if she knows where that child is, then obviously somebody can go get that child.
Teekah, 2-year-old, goes missing from the bowling alley, Tacoma. Fast forward, time passes. Everyone is desperate.
I went out of the bathroom in a frantic, and I went up to the off-duty officer, and I told him, I said, my daughter's gone. And he said, what do you mean? I was like, she's nowhere to be found. She's gone. And I said, I've searched everywhere. So he took my information down, and he said, he told the bowlers to stop what you're doing, look under the benches and see if you see a little girl sleeping. I said, we've done all that. She's gone. She's nowhere to be found. And so, like 20 minutes later, that's when they called the first officer in.
People volunteered to help in the search. You had 200 police officers involved in the search. You had the dogs, the search dogs who were out there, all looking for some clues, trying to find any leads, anything that would shed some light on what happened to this 2-year-old girl. But despite all these resources and all these people looking, volunteers, police officers, helicopters, infrared, bloodhounds on the ground, they found nothing.
In July 2007, a man was arrested, suspected in the disappearance and murder of 12-year-old Zena Linnet. When police searched the suspect's home, they found other pairs of underwear they believe came from other girls. They thought he may have other kidnap murder victims. They did try to see if they might be able to connect him to Teekah Lewis's disappearance years earlier, but they were not able to make any sort of connection between that suspect and another little girl's murder and the disappearance of Teekah Lewis.
An alarm. A little girl ostensibly named Precious Stowe, fitting Teekah's description, skin color, age, the works, found dead, Kansas City.
I was convicted from the start in the eyes of the community.
This was Harrell Johnson's argument on the stand before he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Michelle Johnson had already pleaded guilty last year to her role in her daughter's murder. She had watched the child die without calling for help because both she and her boyfriend had warrants out for their arrest. An apology now comes too late for a leader of the Precious Stowe Committee.
But you let her lay on the floor and you let her die. But you asked us to believe that you really care.
Precious Doe was the name given to the child when her headless body was found in a wooded area in Kansas City back in 2001. The girl's real name is Erica Green, but it took 4 years to learn her identity.
If that's supposed to be her sign of remorse, I don't understand, because I feel like she had 4 long years. She had every opportunity to take and turn this around. She didn't have to wait 4 years.
Police believe it's Teekah. They race there. Then, after a DNA comparison, it's not Teekah.
I don't want none of you people to feel no sympathy or nothing for me, because, for one, you people didn't have no sympathy or nothing when my constitutional rights was violated.
Judge John Torrance responded to Johnson's statements, saying he was a textbook sociopath who refused to take responsibility for the murder.
You committed acts that were ghoulish, vile, and by any measure revolting.
Sergeant David Bernard investigated the case 7 years ago. The brutality of Erica's death haunted him and his family. He said they set a placemat at their dinner table for Erica. Now that her killers, Harrell and Michelle Johnson, are locked up, they can move on.
You know, they're people with holes in their souls. They don't care anything about but themselves. That's all.
More time passes and another red flag raised, this time in Dallas, Texas. There's a little girl there, looks exactly like Teekah. Teekah's mom convinced she's found her little girl. Specifically, the little girl not only looks like Teekah, she's the same age as Teekah. She's being homeschooled, not allowed to get a lot of public access. She even has pointy little points on her ears like Teekah has. Mom's hopes dashed when the little girl who looks just like Teekah is not her lost daughter.
A little boy who was at the bowling alley that night says that he saw two men near the area where Teekah was playing, and that it even appeared one of the men was approaching Teekah. Now, police could never find these two men or account for these two men that this boy thinks he saw. So that was just another dead end. They could never point to one or two men, any unknown men that might have been the person who did something with Teekah that night.
My brothers are outside searching. They were calling her name outside. I'm calling Teekah, Teekah. And she had a purse that she was carrying that night, and she was putting her Starburst wrappers in there. And I thought, well, maybe, you know, she would drop something, some kind of clue would have been dropped, but nothing was dropped.
To this date, tonight, Teekah's mother has never given up.
Point her the right way home, because she has sisters that need to know her, that want her home. She has a grandma that's about to turn 80 on Sunday, and she would love to see her granddaughter one more time.
Can you imagine? All these years that have passed, every year, Teekah's mother holds a candlelight vigil at that bowling alley. The bowling alley has since been torn down. There is no more bowling alley.
To remember and honor Teekah around the holidays, they create a toy drive in Teekah's name as a way to spread and keep her spirit alive. This 2-year-old girl who they hope and pray will come home someday.
Tacoma police have repeatedly sort of gone back to the well, released new pictures of Teekah, released any new information that they've had, put her picture out there again, try to jog people's memories. If maybe they'd been at the bowling alley that night, maybe they were nearby, maybe they saw something suspicious. They've tried to do whatever they could to generate some new leads in Teekah's disappearance.
Unless they have a tip that comes in, then they'll call me and tell me about it. Back in August, they had dug up a man's yard because he had tried to lure a 3-year-old from a bowling alley. They dug up his house and nothing was there.
So far, none of those tips have led to Teekah, but her mother hopes that they still might someday.
There's nothing left of the scene where Teekah went missing. But every year the mother goes there and holds a candlelight vigil. She believes her daughter is alive. She believes someone took Teekah and is raising the child as their own. That's a mother's love. There's nothing greater on this earth than a mother's love. And she is convinced that somehow, some way, she will find her little girl.
I believe somebody took my child, somebody that couldn't have a child, and is raising mine as their own. I pray every day my daughter comes home. Just give me my baby back. I know she's not a baby no more. She's 16. I've missed 14 birthdays. And it's time to bring her home. Give me a Christmas miracle. Bring my baby home to me. That's what I want. That's all I ask for every Christmas is bring me my baby home. Because I know she's out there. She's out there somewhere. And that person that knows the information needs to come forward.
Police have released an age progression photo. Here it is.
But there's that one person that can solve this case. And all we ask for them is come forward. I can forgive and forget.